Thanks. I presume the video that you're referring to is a video of ballot boxes shown in an open field in what the video is headed as Modimolle in the Limpopo province. The circumstances around that ballot are as follows. On the day of special vote on day one, the presiding officer had assembled 3 ballot boxes, meaning a ballot box for each ballot type. That goes against the training because we only use a single ballot box to put the votes into an envelope and to deposit that envelope into a ballot box at the station. So when the presiding officer was alerted to that instance, they proceeded to remove the 2 other assembled boxes from the station and left them laying out in the open, and that way videos were made of that incident. The incidents ought not to have happened. However, we can assure you that no cast ballots were placed at risk in that instance. The issue of training for purposes of election, presiding officers, deputy presiding officers, and voters' roll officers are put through a modularized training over 4 days, which covers the logistics handling, electoral administration, administration of a voting station, as well as the counting procedure. A person who is trained ought to have received or attained an assessment of 80% before they are placed at the voting station. A person who doesn't meet that requirement can be presented and placed at the voting station, at least for those 3 leadership roles. The processes following the close of voting stations is as follows. We vote in the presence of party agents. The ballot box that were cast for special votes over Monday and Tuesday will, during the course of the day, be introduced at the voting station. When an opportunity permits, the process of verification will commence. In other words, we take out the outer envelope that has the details of the voter. We compare that outer envelope against the voter's roll and the pre-approved list of special votes at the voting station. Once we have assurance that only people who appeared on the roll and on those lists of voters were allowed to vote, we will discard the outer envelopes which has the details of the voter. The second envelope, which is unmarked, will then be mixed with the ballots in use at that station so that you delink a vote from the voter. You keep the sanctity of the secrecy of the vote. Once we've closed stations, the very same station converts into a voting station. In other words, no ballots that are uncounted will leave the station. We count in the presence of party agents and those who represent independent candidates. Even during the count, party agents and representative of agents may raise objections to the sorting, counting, and tallying of votes. And once the vote is done, we produce result slips in duplicate. Parties are allowed to take photographs of those images, and one image of the result must be left on the door or at the fence of a voting station as a public announcement of the outcome of the result at that voting station. The second result slip is transported in tamper-evident bag for purposes of capturing at our local site. The point to be re-emphasized is that there is no online transmission of results from a voting station to a data center. The results are captured at the local office of the IEC in the presence of representatives of political parties, in the presence of independent auditors before each result is declared. How many people have voted? We have indications, however, the law precludes us from doing exit polls on election day. and also only results of valid votes are announced. So we are unable to share the project, we are unable to show voter turnout as it speaks, but we can say by 11 o'clock, a significant majority of the 27.7 million people had voted. That accords to the history up to now, where majority of voters vote by 11 o'clock in each election, except the odd one was 2021, where we had a spread of voters across the day. The VMD is not a requirement in law for the voting process. It was added as an additional safeguard to avoid instances and possibilities of people presenting at one station, voting, vitiating the efficacy of the indelible ink, and presenting at another station to vote. But since 2021, the law has been changed, and a person may only vote at the voting station at which they are registered unless they have given the Commission prior notification of their intention to vote elsewhere. So that's a long answer of saying the VMD has no practical or doesn't reduce the integrity of the results that will be announced. It is a tool added to facilitate the smooth flow of voters and also facilitate people finding their names on the voters roll and helping us to maintain a seamless online voters roll. However, where it proves to be a hindrance rather than an enabler to voting, we can put the VMDs aside and continue following the legislated method of removing people from the hard copy of the voters roll. The issue of ballot papers in Johannesburg, it is not a shortage in the supply. The instructions are as follows. Not party agents, my apologies. Presiding officers and area managers are responsible for the rollout of logistics to voting stations. Where there are enough teams, it is easier to do that, to escort those people. This morning, an assessment was made that there would not be enough teams to escort all those teams of presiding officers at a go-to voting station. It was agreed that bigger vehicles will be used to transport a cluster of voting stations so that there could be better escort of those materials. Because one vehicle needed to deliver at multiple sites, it caused that there were delays in arriving at certain stations. The last station at which provisions were delivered was the Craig Hall Primary School, just around 8:45. It was an avoidable thing that ought not to have happened. It has happened. We are dealing with the repercussions, but all people who present themselves will be allowed to vote. The problems that we've experienced today are not intractable. They do not amount to the deviation from the legal requirement and the standard for free and fair elections. We could have done without them, but they have presented and we are dealing with them together with stakeholders, with candidates, and for that reasons we will be sending clear instructions to presiding officers on how to deal with the situation going forward following our discussions with representatives of political contestants at the National PLC meeting. Thank you very much, Kate.